The stream is live. How
All right,
exciting!
everybody, and we are live. And we have Miss Anhata on fire with us today.
Welcome, YouTubes. All right.
All right. Miss Anhata, you want to do a test hi and see if we can hear you?
I'm getting an echo on my end. I don't know.
Don't hear
What's
any audio.
just in my ear? I'm getting an echo, and it's a little hard to hear.
Don't hear anything.
Okay.
You
I'll
want to try
see what I
leaving
can
and
do.
coming back?
I can try. There we are.
Mm-mm.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And we just heard you. We were just talking.
I know. As soon as we went live, everything went to shit. Yeah, it was great. And then we went live, and now you're echoing and you can't hear me.
Yeah, maybe go, you see on StreamYard at the settings
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom, go down there and see, make sure the mic is turned on correctly.
I just muted the mic and turned it back on. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Crap. Okay. Well, I turned the mic off and I turned it back on. Stream this to my audience settings, camera, audio, echo cancellation is on, automatically adjust, default, headset, earpiece. All right. So I've paired my Bluetooth headset with this and come back. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Everyone can see and hear me, but I can't hear Christ anxiety. Darn it. Everything was working.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, it muted me. So now,
Excellent.
what happened when it finally downloaded the drivers?
Mm-hmm.
It went to this, but I needed headphones for this. And so
Haha.
all the sound is going to this. Yes, I figured it out. I was like,
Interesting.
that, yes.
Now we know. Excellent. I can understand you much better now. Yes. All right.
Perfect. At least now we know.
All right. So, everybody, welcome. Hi.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we finally figured
Yeah.
them out.
Only took us a little bit to get the audio organized, and now we're golden. Okay.
I'm gonna plug in my little light here to where maybe y'all can see me better and I'm not gonna be in the dark so much. Woohoo! Got a little better, y'all.
Oh, there we go. Now I can see you. Perfect.
Yay!
Yeah. The wonderful thing about SPTV getting like 10 new channels a month is that there's 10 new channels a month. The other thing is
And then
it's almost It's almost impossible now to do a streaming where you're not stepping on someone, which
Right.
is an embarrassment of riches, and it's awesome. So there you are.
It's That's what I almost like try to not step on anybody's toes and not schedule like my lives with other people's lives, and now it's impossible. You just
Hmm.
can't do it. You
You
just
do the
kind of have
best
to
you
do your
can.
own thing,
Hmm.
and
That's what Poe discovered because Poe would schedule something like a week in advance, and he'd be ready to go. And right before he went out to go on, Aaron would get on with a get on with something and suck a bunch of
yeah,
viewers
because
away, or something else. And it's like, guys, come on, I had this scheduled a week. But with the way the nature of SBTV, you schedule and then you do the best you can, which I think is awesome
and I
in
feel
a
like,
way.
I
So,
hate to put it this way, but somebody big like Aaron, they're gonna suck the viewers away. I mean, I hate to
hmm
seem like that,
you,
but it's
yeah,
gonna be like that.
it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that's
And,
how it's gonna be.
and
And
and we're like the more people go watch Aaron, the better. That's cool.
yeah, and me,
Right.
the way I look at it is if somebody subscribed to me, or they eventually do come subscribe to me or come across my videos, that's what the playback's for.
Yeah, and they'll be able to watch it on 2X, or they'll be able to do the what's it called when they timestamp things, and yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, timestamp. Yeah,
yeah, and that's why
yeah.
night when I come on, I like the other night. I think I was only on for like 45 minutes, but I just come on, see if
Hmm.
anybody's on. If anybody's on and they want to chit chat, fine. If they're not, cool.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep,
that's
exactly.
then that's how I've been
There's
playing
no
it.
there's no other way to start than just by starting and doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it, by just
Especially in my
starting and doing it.
Yeah, especially in my channel, because I don't do really like pre-recorded videos or anything like that,
Hmm.
because I'm here more of a talking, like what we're
Right,
doing,
right.
like just to talk and to get things off the chest and just to chill
Yeah.
and talk and just
So, do you want me to tell you about my culty background, and then you can tell me about yours, and we can compare? How do you want this to
definitely.
go?
Give me 1 second, 'cause sorry, I had my vape and I seem to have lost it. It was here just a second ago.
Isn't that the way it goes?
Yes, and it was here just like 2 seconds ago, and it seemed to have grown legs and walked away.
Yeah.
You see, what'd you do with it? You did something with it, didn't you? It literally, it was like sitting right here. And the bad thing is, I quit smoking like 2 months ago, and so that's my thing. Ah, found it.
Woohoo! Found it.
Okay. If
All
I
right.
don't have it, then it's like I'm dead. I'll go crazy.
Got to you got to write it down, or you won't remember it. That's how I am, anyway. I, by the way, am not freaked out by dead air like Ron. I'm chill. So I can talk or not, whatever you need. Um, but I can get started if you want with a little on my background. I was on Poe on the Go 5 months ago, so anyone who watched that will have a little bit of background. I was born in a yoga cult. Yeah, in 1970, my mother was 19, and She'd come from her own trauma background and ended up in LA, where she started taking yoga classes and became indoctrinated into the 3HO cult, also known as Happy, Healthy, Holy Organization, hence the 3HO, also known as Sikh Dharma, also known as American Sikhs, also known as Siri Singh Sahib Corporation. There's a lot of AKAs with this organization with subsidiaries. This man made an empire and it is still going strong. My brother was one of the very first children born into this cult in 1971. There's a man named Peter Singh. His name was Thought Peter Singh in the cult, and he wrote a book. And he said his daughter was the first child born to 3HO. And I'm like, no, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. My brother was born a few months before your daughter was. He was the first child born to 3HO. If we want to be technical, whatever. My mom and dad's marriage was arranged by Yogi Bhajan. They did not know each other before they were matched. Yogi Bhajan would arrange marriages because he was a Sikh man from the Punjab province, the former Punjab province, now Pakistan. And all of these hippies doing free love and stuff in Hollywood was not okay with him. He matched everyone up, regardless of how compatible you were with each other, and married everyone off to each other so there'd be no, unsanctified boinking, basically.
So if they had
And
a problem with each other, would there be any consequence?
nope. Yogi Bhajan's advice to married couple was, the man is the Lord, and the woman's response, if there's a disagreement between the husband and the wife, is to tell their husband, you are right, it is the will of God, namaste. Yeah, not real popular with the wives in 3HO. That was the kind of BS my mom was dealing with.
Here's my first
Kind of,
question then.
yeah.
Did your mom and dad stay together?
They were together for 2 years until my father died. And then 2 years later, my mother left 3HO, in part because of how my father died in the fallout. So it's all inextricably linked. It's weird. So my mom and dad were matched together, regardless of how compatible they were. Yogi Bhajan's like, you, together, you're done, go. Right? That's literally what he would do to people. And unless you came to him and said, I would like to marry this person, and he'd go, yes or no. He could literally say, no, you're not going to, which I can't even. Okay. Anyway, so once you're married, you are completely sublimated to A, your husband, and B, Yogi Bhajan. Yogi Bhajan made a big deal out of women. He had women retreats. He claimed women were the salvation of mankind. It was all lip service. He hated women, and he treated them despicably. And it showed in all of his policies and procedures in 3HO.
So was the women married to the spouse and Yogi?
Nope.
No.
Yogi had his own personal harem of sex slaves.
Oh, okay.
If you were married off to another man, you weren't one of his. If he wanted you to be his sex slave, you were one of his sex slaves. No one else's wife.
Okay. And if you weren't one of his, then you were basically discussing and he left you alone, kind of thing.
You were the property of your husband, and if he wanted you, he would remove your husband and just take you. But generally speaking, he messed with the women that he wanted to be in his harem or were in his harem. He didn't, he avoided a lot of the pitfalls of a lot of narcissistic, malignant sociopaths, like malignant narcissist sociopaths, right? Like Danny Masterson, who R's like everyone he possibly can and eventually gets nailed, right? Yogi
Right.
Bhajan showed discernment. He targeted, he isolated, and he made women part of his secretariat. He called them his secretaries or his nuns. They were Sikh nuns, which isn't actually a thing in Sikhism. Sikh nuns is not a thing. Okay, this is his bullshit.
Oh,
Let me be
they're
clear.
nuns,
He called them his nuns.
but no,
Yeah,
that's
that's not
wow.
Sikh. Okay, this isn't Sikh. If I can get one thing across to everybody, it's that Sikh Dharma, American Sikhs, Yogi Bhajan was a fraud and it has nothing to do with Sikhism. Okay, because there's no nuns in Sikhism. There are no new gurus in Sikhism. Yogi called himself a new guru. This is illegal in Sikhism to call yourself a guru. Sikhism said there have been 10 gurus and there are no more. If you want to be a sacred, like religious, spiritual leader, go somewhere else because you're not a Sikh. All right. We have 10 gurus. We know who they are. We know what they said. Go away. Right. Yogi Bhajan took this, came to America, told everybody whatever he wanted them to think was true, and did it. Because what did they know? There was no internet. It was 1970. There was
Yeah.
no encyclopedia about Sikhism and about how yoga has nothing to do with Sikhism and about using yoga to achieve spiritual, elevation and advancement. Is completely against Sikh scriptures. It is absolutely forbidden in Sikh scriptures to use other forms of whatever for spiritual advancement. You are to meditate on the words of the gurus and get on with your life. I have so much respect for the Sikh religion. It is so non bullshit. And Yogi Bhajan tried to bullshit it up as much as he possibly could. And I'm here to tear it down, basically. To be honest. Yeah. So my mom was completely taken in by this fraud. She experienced extreme religious abuse. So did my father. And my father, I get emotional. My apologies. I was talking to my husband earlier today. I mentioned something in one of Vanessa Rose's lives about about Kundalini yoga. And she said, "You're right. I've counseled people who've come out of Kundalini yoga and they've had the same problems with the hypnotic trance BS that Scientology does." And
Mm-hmm.
I was like sobbing on the other end of the screen because that's what killed my dad. That bullshit meditation made my dad go have psychotic breaks, and it killed him. So anyone has anything that I can do to help bring any cult down, I'm here for it, and I will help you. Because they killed my dad, god damn it. So fuck Scientology, fuck 3HO, fuck the Jehovah's Witnesses, fuck Mormon. I'm here to take all of them down. Just point me in the right direction. Probably a little more truth than we need on a Thursday, but there we are.
I get you because it is. I mean, cults are harmful, and a lot of people don't realize it, and they don't realize how
Yep.
many there is. I
Dozens
mean,
of
there
yoga
truly
cults.
is.
There are dozens of bad yoga cults, not the benign ones that everyone's like, oh, who cares? Whatever.
Yeah,
Bad
not just
yoga
the normal
cults.
like class on Thursday yoga thing. No, there's
Hmm.
true cults
Yeah, people,
that
everyone,
are out there.
everyone, like people look at Wild Country and Bhagwan Rajneesh and go, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, that was crazy sauce, crazy sauce." What were they thinking? That's crazy. It's like when people start tearing down, like, "Oh my God, that was so crazy! Can you believe Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh last Osho?" Oh, it's like, you know what? There are dozens of people in cults today underneath someone exactly like Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh was, exactly like Yogi Bhajan was, exactly like David Koresh, Danny, or not Danny, David Miscavige, right? L. Ron Hubbard. There are dozens of people like this right now preying on other people. And Hollywood's like, as long as they pay our commercials, we'll just be quiet, right? Like Scientology buys a lot of commercials, they buy a lot of real estate, they buy these huge Super Bowl commercials. And Hollywood's like, as long as you keep paying us, we'll keep quiet about you being a criminal coercive cult. That's messed up. Okay? It's not okay for Hollywood to say, as long as you're benefiting us, we'll allow your shitty cult who's destroying lives to just keep going. As long as we keep making our money, you're cool. That's not okay. That's why I'm here to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, after the letters came out, after the Danny Masterson hearing, I keep hearing people say, cancel Hollywood. I don't want to cancel just Ashton. I don't want to cancel just Mila. I want to cancel Hollywood. Cancel all of them. They're not wrong. Something that no one has been talking about. I mentioned it earlier, and someone said in a chat in a different stream, and someone said that's alarming. And I said, yeah, and no one is talking about it. My husband and I adopted a brother and a sister from foster care. And we raised these siblings with our bio daughter for 10 years before they aged out, went on their own. It was a train wreck of massive proportions. I can't even get into all of it. Suffice it to say, we have minimal contact with one of the children and none with the other, because there's too many personality disorders and mental illnesses to deal with. They were severely damaged before they came into our homes, and we were lied to about the extent of the damage. And they severely damaged us before they left. So I have a unique insight into the effects of SA on children, shall we
Mm-hmm.
say. Okay? I raised 2 kids to whom this had been done. I want anyone listening to know that Mila Kunis's children and Bijou's children are not safe. Danny Masterson was a predator, and he surrounded himself with people who enabled his predation. These people are dangerous. Bijou is still associated with these people. Ashton was there for some of Danny Masterson's R-ing, some of his
Oh
essays.
yeah,
He is there with Mila Kunis's children, exposing their children to all of Danny Masterson's friends. Mila Kunis's children and Bijou's children are in danger right now because of their parents' choices. I can tell you in detail why, if you're curious, because I took classes, I was educated, I raised 2 children, I have done massive research into the hidden epidemic. When I took a class, it was on the subject. It was called parenting children, parenting for non-offending adults of children who've been SA'd. That was basically the name of the class. Non-offending parents of SA'd children. So it was an entire class that we took for weeks. Okay. Our kids were taken to the gym in this elementary school and played in a gym while we discussed the most heinous things you can imagine happening to children. I can't talk about some of the stuff we talked about. Just for my own mental health. The stuff that happened, okay, it was a class of about 20 parents. Some of these parents were the bio parents, some of these parents were the adopted parents, some of these parents were foster parents, but they were all parents of children. They were the non-offending parent of a child who'd been SA'd. So I have a wealth of information on the subject, a wealth of background in raising children. And Bijou and Mila, if you're watching, divorce the fuck out of those men. Get those children away from the predators you are surrounded with and start fresh. You are doing your children no favors, and in 20 years, they will be writing books about how you allowed them to be AR'd. If you do not intervene, divorce your loser spouses, and save your children. Those children are in danger, I am convinced. Off my soapbox.
Um, Anhata, sorry, you know I'm gonna mix up your name.
You're good.
Look like I'm not like talking or saying something when I need to, but my Wi-Fi is like going up and down. But just so you know, that's what's
No worries. No worries. And I figure you're probably also looking at chat from time to time as well. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the middle of the mountains in Washington, so I can't fault you for having a lag. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Washington State. So yeah.
But I totally agree with you. I've been through so much training too, because I was special needs teacher's assistant.
Yep.
I wanted to
Me too.
adopt foster as well.
High five. Me too. Yep.
So I've been there. I know what it's like, especially going through all those trainings. I've seen what it's like. I've been there just because I've worked at children's homes. I've seen firsthand what it's like, what these children go through, and it breaks my heart knowing what the children go through and what the parents don't see, what other adults don't see.
And I never understood that. I think it's because I'm an empath, like not
Me too.
a psychic, not a psychic empath. Like I can psychically feel what you're feeling. I mean, like just temperamentally with the narcissist, normal people, empath type thing, right? I'm not claiming to any special OT powers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am an empath. I've actually been like diagnosed and stuff, you know, and when I was a child in school, I don't remember very much from California. We moved when I was 9 to Missouri, or I call it misery. I did not enjoy the state. I still do not enjoy the state. The people, wonderful. The climate, disgusting. The politics, even more disgusting. You know.
Moved to Texas.
The only places worse than Texas for cesspool politics are Arkansas and Missouri and like Mississippi. But Missouri politics are so disgustingly evil. I was glad to leave. I was glad to move because the 90% humidity with over 90-degree temperatures was killing me. I kept having heat strokes every summer. I was dying. And B, all of the political conservative, the Christian conservative, the conservative, the white supremacists, all of the militias, I was done. Missouri is very white supremacist, very militia, very sovereign citizen cult BS. We had a big rash of state troopers being murdered on the highway because they'd pull someone over who was a white supremacist with a ton of illegal ordnance in their trunk. So they would just open fire on the police officers. It was like, I swear to God, one year, it was like every other week, another highway patrol officer on I-44 had been murdered in cold blood by a white supremacist cult. It was insane. They now have cameras in police cars because of this, and they have buddy systems in the police cars because of this in Missouri from the 80s. That is what started police having cams in their cars because they were being murdered on the highway by white supremacist cults in Missouri. So Missouri is extremely culty. It's just not the sexy yoga cults or, like the sexy Scientology cults or, like the sensational Jim Jones or Manson cults, They're Bubba down the street with a bunch of his friends shooting it up in the woods on the weekends and killing state troopers on the weekday. That's the kind of cults we had in Missouri. So I thought I was getting away from cults when I moved to Oregon. What did I know? Not a lot.
Right.
Oregon's extraordinarily culty. We're the home of Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh. Oh, excuse me as I laugh at myself. Yeah, I moved to Beaverton and promptly found a cult like that. Like that. I moved to Beaverton, Oregon, and found a cult within a month of me moving there. I was going to their worship services, okay? They almost got me. There's so much cults everywhere. I was born in a cult. I know to avoid these people, and another cult almost got me, okay? You can't escape this shit, no matter where you go. It's insane.
It is.
So yeah, so my mom was yeah.
Okay, so your dad passed away 2 years after you were born?
He died a month before I was born, 2 years after he joined the 3HO organization. The 3HO organization started in 1970, and my mom and dad were on the ground floor. They were some of the very first initiates. He started. He came from the yogi. He wasn't an actual yogi. He had no training. Let me be clear. When he was 16, he took a yoga class. Okay, and from this, he created Kundalini yoga. The man was not a yogi teacher. He called himself Yogi Bhajan. I call him Harbhajan Singh Puri because that is his blasted name. He's not an effing yogi. He took no yoga classes. He had no yoga training. He was a bullshit con artist. But him as Yogi Bhajan, everyone knows him as Yogi Bhajan. So I'm kind of forced to call him YB, even though he's a total... what does one of his ex-disciples calls him the bogey yogi? For the bogus yogi, he calls him the bogey yogi. That's my favorite. Guru Sant Singh, he's a bit of a nutcase, but I love him to death. He's my kind of crazy. So yeah, this guy came. He was formerly a customs official for the airport in Mumbai. That was his job before he moved to the US. He decided there's not enough scope of opportunity for him in India. He wanted to go to the Western world and make his mark. He went to Canada and didn't get any traction, spent a couple months in Toronto or something, and no one would give him the time of day. So he knew someone in LA, so he flew out to LA and immediately found a whole bunch of really idealistic hippies who believed every damn thing that came out of his mouth, sadly. And he started teaching his Kundalini yoga at, I believe it was called the East West Community Center in Hollywood. There was a community center in Hollywood for East West, spiritual collaboration, because it was the 60s had just happened, the age of Aquarius, and all of the Buddhist, Taoist, Zen, yoga stuff. Please come to LA and tell us all about it, basically. And he started teaching classes and discovered he could tell these guys whatever he wanted and they'd believe him, and set himself up as a lifestyle guru almost immediately. So he knew positions, breathing techniques, and yoga postures to make people really high. And that's Kundalini yoga. So if you look at people doing Kundalini yoga, you'll see their arms above their head a lot. Because if you just do like Kundalini yoga image search, you'll see a lot of this, and a lot of this, and a lot of this, and a lot of arms above the head, and kind of crazy breathing shit. All right. I'm not doing it right because my mom refused to teach me. Good on her.
Right.
And it gets you really, really high. And it's a long high that takes a long time to come down from. So after he gets you really, really high with his breathing, his positions, and then he gives you all these bullshit mantras and things that he tells you are mantras that are actually literally gaga goo goo. He literally would make shit up and use the Sanskrit version of gaga goo goo on my parents and their contemporaries. They had no idea this wasn't Sanskrit. They had no idea this wasn't an actual mantra. Yeah. I've got a lot of hate in my heart for Yogi Bhajan. I'm not ashamed to admit. I'm not a Christian, so I don't have to say, sorry, God. I can say I have a lot of hate in my heart for this man and move on with my life and just, let chips fall as they will. I was raised Christian after my mom left the cult, but I am not now. So there are a lot of similarities between Yogi Bhajan and L. Ron Hubbard. Not a lot of similarities between Yogi Bhajan and David Miscavige. David Miscavige is a completely different monster. He couldn't start a cult if it was handed to him on a silver platter. He'd destroy it. I mean, he has no gumption. In terms of cult leaders, he gets a D. Okay.
Well, David, all he did was take the reins from LRH. That's all he did.
And
LRH started that cult. David Miscavige,
yes.
he just, really, he didn't even do that. He snuck in. He took that shit from the ladies that were supposed to take the reins.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will tell you before David Miscavige took the reins, Scientology was the kinder, gentler Scientology. They didn't they didn't make you divorce your entire family like that just because you knew a suppressive person. All of that nonsense came after with David Miscavige. That's my understanding anyway. I'm a never. What do I know? What do I know? I was born in a different cult. So, but from what I can understand, David Miscavige is a narcissist, probably a sociopath. He's a really shitty cult leader. He's driving the cult into the ground. Any halfway decent cult leader would be growing Scientology right now, not running it into the ground. And he is running it into the ground. He's an idiot, in my opinion. As cult leaders go, he gets a D minus. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard gets like an A. He's one of the smartest, most genius cult leaders. He created a system that is almost impossible to get yourself out of. Once you have become indoctrinated into Scientology, it's almost impossible to get out. You have to be treated so badly. Your only choice is to die or leave. Honestly, like 80 or more percent of the people on SPTV who were born in or joined in Scientology, that's their story. They'd still be in it if they hadn't treated them so bad that they'd rather be staying.
Right.
You know, David Miscavige is a shitty cult leader to be chasing people off. Cult leaders attract people. He's repelling people. He's a terrible cult leader, which is a good thing in the long term, but it's really shitty for everyone who has to deal with him right now. Because he's destroying lives and being evil. Just like Yogi Bhajan. Yogi Bhajan was deliberately evil and deliberately destroyed lives. There's so much dirt on Yogi Bhajan. The fact that he was never arrested and jailed is its own documentary. There was so much evidence of him beating to the point of needing surgery and R-ing women to the point where they needed reconstructive surgery. There was a child who was 14 whose sister was one of his Yogi Bhajan's nuns. This was when he had started the ashram in New Mexico. He got some property in New Mexico and started a second ashram in New Mexico. So he has the Hollywood ashrams. He has ashrams all over the country. And then he has this huge Mecca in New Mexico as well. One of his nuns, one of his sex slaves, enticed her younger 14-year-old sister to come to the compound. He kidnapped and imprisoned her, and he arred her for a week at least before she was able to escape. He beat and arred her for a week. The report from when she went to the hospital, she was beaten so badly she needed reconstructive surgery. She was arred so badly she needed reconstructive surgery. This is the man we're talking about. So I'll be in a chat and I'll say, shout out to anyone in chat born in a cult. Kundalini yoga is bunk. 3HO is a cult. Yogi Bhajan was a monster. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, right? That's my little spiel that I give every now and then. Whenever I feel moved by the spirit, someone mentions yoga, whatever. If I feel moved, I will just like boop, pop it out. There you are. I said my piece. Moving on, right? That is why I say Yogi Bhajan is a monster. He was a sexual predator, and he preyed on women and children. Another woman came forward and said the abuse she encountered at his hands when she was 6, she will never be able to have normal relationships with anyone for the rest of her life.
That's Amanda.
She was
be locked away and he thrown away.
The fact that he was never arrested and tried and convicted on any of these things. I'm like, well, of course Danny Masterson wasn't. He was nowhere near as egregious as Yogi Bhajan was. They have documents from a hospital on what he did to a child, and this man did not get arrested. You know? Another woman came forward and said, when I was 6 years old, my father gave me to Yogi Bhajan. You can find her account online. I can't talk about it. It's too
I
much.
understand. Oh, I understand.
But if you want to know more, please go look it up. It's all online. It's all there. Freedom of Mind Resource Center online is Stephen Hassan's organization. There are other people as well as Stephen Hassan involved in it. He has a couple women he works with as well. They have a section on 3HO because he ended up in the 80s counseling a bunch of people coming out of 3HO who'd been severely abused by Yogi Bhajan. That's how I came across Steve Hassan, and that's how I came across SPTV Network. I was researching my cult. I didn't know it was a cult until 2019. I was born in 72. So
Oh, wow.
my entire life until,
So,
let's see, 4 years ago. If you'd told me 3HO was a cult, I'd have said, no, it's not. It's just yoga. It's just yoga. It's fine. One of the women my mother knew personally, her legal name is Pamela Sahara Dyson. In 3HO, her name was Premka, which she was told meant beloved of God, but she later found out meant concubine. Yogi Bhajan named her my sex slave. That was Premka means sex slave. That's what he named her and told everyone her name was. But because no one knows Sanskrit, no one knew. This is the man we're talking about. He was evil on every level. He was never good. He was never good and then turned evil. He was always evil. And you can't convince me otherwise because I know too much. So Premka wrote a book. I knew about Premka. My mother talked to me about 3HO growing up. I heard about Ganga, who was mentioned in Peter Singh's book. My mother is mentioned in Premka's book. And my mother mentioned Gursant Singh, who came later after she left. I mean, all the people who wrote books, I kind of peripherally already knew about them from my mom because my mom talked to me about 3HO growing up because she didn't know it was a cult and she didn't know it was evil and stuff, right? On one level, I think she honestly did because she refused to teach us Kundalini yoga. She knew it wasn't appropriate for children. She knew Kundalini yoga got you high.
right,
She to her it was a natural
right.
high, and it was his anti-drug program. He set himself up as an anti-drug rehabilitation program. If you want to get off drugs, come to my Kundalini yoga class. We'll get you off drugs. It's because we'll get you high on your own supply. That's what it was. So my mom bought the spiel. She thought getting high on your own supply was legit. She thought he was getting people off drugs. She thought this was amazing. My dad did his, like, I swear to God, have you heard Serge Delmar talk about a 2-week training course in these hotels and then you can become an auditor? Have you heard
I,
Serge Delmar say this?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. My hand to God, you could take a 2-week Kundalini yoga course, and by the time you were done, you could teach Kundalini yoga to anyone, just like Scientology. Honest to God, I swear he studied LRH because he studied neurolinguistics programming too, just like LRH. And he studied like all these other things that LRH did. I don't know that he was like deliberately like, I'm gonna start a cult.
Well,
I'm gonna do what this guy did. I think he's like, hey, this shit works.
well,
Let's do this. But yeah. So the
like the
his mhm, what's that?
so
Sorry, you're breaking up, hon. I'm sorry.
is it back in the 70s and 80s?
It started in
Um,
1970.
I was saying back in 70s and 80s.
Hmm. That's when it started.
Yeah, you couldn't back then. You couldn't get anywhere. Like you couldn't go to any state basically and not like come across one of these cultish groups without
Hmm.
basically coming across something like this.
And there was
That
no
was ridiculous.
internet to find out if they're legit or not. I mean, there was no anti-cult clearinghouse saying, "Oh, can I do
Right.
this yoga or will I end up, wrecked for life?" Right? So, I mean, nowadays you can say, "Well, did you do any research before you joined that church?"
Right. Yeah.
People are kind of like, did did you get sucked into a cult or did you just walk in? It's a lot harder to just, get drawn in and find out you're in one and then you're like, what just happened to me, and walk out. Because Google and the internet and everything has made it a lot more difficult. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't mean they're not creative. It doesn't mean they're not coming up with new ideas every day on how to suck people in and make them think that, don't listen to the internet. They're liars. I mean,
Right.
yeah. But it is significantly harder to do.
So like
Significantly.
with your family, for your mom, was your dad's passing the indicator of hey, something you're wrong?
That that wasn't the wake up call that something was wrong with Kundalini Yoga and 3HO. At the time, she thought that was just like my dad. She thought my dad. She was told that my dad had paranoid schizophrenia, and that was the reason for all of his aberrant behavior. Although I believe there's another explanation. And so that was her thing. Like, my husband had a mental illness and he committed suicide and ever blamed me. That's how she felt at the ashram. My dad committed suicide. It was very shocking. It sent shockwaves throughout 3HO. It was in 71. Excuse me, it was in 72. 3HO was only 2 years old. So he was one of their first students. He was one of their most successful teachers. He went to New York City and started an ashram in Brooklyn. I mean, he got shit done. He was a doer, he was a getter, and he committed suicide. And my mom came back from New York back to LA because that's where all her family was. She didn't know anyone in New York, and she'd had a terrible time there and was happy to leave. Okay. I asked her what her opinion was about New York many years later, and she said, "It smells. It's stinky."
Wow.
That's her opinion of New York. It stinks. You're probably not wrong, hon. So she went back to California and she was treated like a pariah amongst the 3HO community. They did not understand what was going on with my dad's suicide. They thought, what did you do to him to make him kill himself? That's how she was treated. So it
Oh
didn't take a
wow.
lot to force her out once that started coming down. She really felt like she was blamed for my dad's suicide, that she had done something to him to make him crazy. And then Yogi Bhajan doubled down on it. And he told her, you need to foster your son out, my older brother. He needs to go to a foster home. And so she did, because that's what Yogi said to do. And you did what Yogi said to do. He would scream and berate and tear down if you didn't do what he said. He would pull you in front of the entire ashram and scream at you until you were crying and would agree to do whatever he said. So when he told my mom that she was fostering my older brother, she said, okay. She didn't have a choice. He was sent to some couple in New Mexico who beat him. He was beaten and abused. But my mom did not know this until years later. I was sitting next to my brother and we were talking to her, and my brother said, yeah, those people, my mom mentioned the couple in New Mexico that he had been fostered with, and he said, yeah, they beat me. And she said, what? And he said, I wet the bed and they beat me every day because I wet the bed every day. So they beat me every day. She had no idea. She had no idea. But,
That is awesome.
you know, after a while, I think Yogi Bhajan realized my mom wasn't properly indoctrinated. She'd spent 2 years out of his sphere of influence in New York. She did not spend the evenings enraptured at his feet during his sessions dispensing wisdom upon the peoples. Okay, she had severe ADHD. She would have gone out of her mind with boredom. My mom was always the one cooking and cleaning. She was always cooking and cleaning, or cleaning and cooking. In the ashram, she was famous for it, right? I guess she's the relatable Reese of 3HO, right? She's always cleaning something. So I think he realized he didn't have control of her the way he wanted. He told her she was going to foster me to another family, and he was going to be one of his, and she was to become one of his nuns. She did not know at this point that his nuns were his sex slaves. My mom is not stupid, okay? She might have been in a cult, but she wasn't stupid. My mom knows very well what happens to little girls who go in foster care. In 1970s, there wasn't a full enough appreciation that that kind of thing happens to boys too. There really wasn't that kind of appreciation. But she knew if she put me in foster care, that was going to happen to me. She's not stupid. So she looked at Yogi and said no, and walked away. She went, packed us up, she drove to New Mexico, she picked up my brother, and she left. I found out later he was going to make her one of his sex slaves. I read Premka's book in 2019. Everything made sense. Nothing that made any sense that I couldn't get a reasonable answer from my mom about, because she couldn't give me a reasonable answer. She still doesn't believe it's a cult, okay, as far as I know. As soon as I found out Pamela Sahara Dyson had written a book and that Yogi Bhajan had raped her for years, I told my mom, and she said, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I never saw Yogi do anything like that.
Wow.
And I didn't say a word. And I thought, you're a fool if you don't believe her. My mom rape apologisted, because for her to fully admit that it was a cult, that she'd done this to herself and to her children, she'd have to do a bunch of reckoning that she's not okay with right now. I'm not going to make her do it either. I'm not going to force her to come to terms with any of this. You know,
Right.
that's her journey, and I'm not going to make her be accountable to me for it. She got out when it mattered, and I have nothing but respect for her for leaving the cult and flipping off Yogi Bhajan and making a life for herself afterwards. The fact that she never admitted it was a cult, she never fully decompressed, that's another story for another time. But I I started getting into SPTV because I started researching 3HO. And Steve Hassan had done a lot of work with people leaving the 3HO in the 80s, like I mentioned earlier. And he mentioned when he was talking to
Mm-hmm.
somebody, he said Yogi Bhajan was a monster, and he said 3HO was a cult. And my mind went, someone else out there agrees with me. I couldn't find anybody to tell me this was a cult. I knew it was. I knew it was, and I couldn't find anyone to tell me it was until Steve Hassan. Steve Hassan told me, and I'm like, yes, yes. And I started following all of his stuff. He does a lot of SPTV work as well, which led me to SPTV, and so that's why I'm here today.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah,
yep.
Steve Hassan does a lot of great work, and his bite model makes a lot of sense. And you can,
God bless that man and all his descendants for 7 generations. He's doing the Lord's work. I love this man. I love Steve Hassan. People have problems with John Atack. I don't give a fuck. I'm Steve Hassan, Team Steve.
yeah, I mean, his his work has done a lot and has saved a lot. It really
Yes. Yeah. So, well, I
saves
think
your relationship.
either Poe or someone else is coming on soon, so we should probably wrap up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. We can definitely do more talking and get on more if you would
I'm
like.
happy. I'm happy to sit down next Thursday and talk with you some more. We can come up with some bullet points on stuff we want to talk about, or whenever works for you.
Works for me. I love your story,
Hmm.
and we go into other. All right. Well, you definitely have a great night, and I guess I'll go ahead and make another one for next Thursday.
That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. I have
Okay.
thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. You're fascinating. I really enjoy picking your brain.
No problem. Thank you. You have a great night,
Good night.
and
Good night. Night, everybody.
good night, y'all. Everybody have a great night.